Hello and welcome, folks, to a special presentation for the channel. This is the Scream 6 spoiler review and discussion. I am joined by Caden, good pal Caden.
Hello.
Hello. So, Caden, you would say you're pretty well versed with the Scream franchise?
Pretty well versed in the Scream franchise. Some people would say, my family would say, at least my sister would say, is that it's probably too much.
Yeah. Well, maybe Caden, you'll be a future killer. I don't know. That's kind of spooky. So quick backstory for me at least. I'll kind of go over my history with the Scream franchise. I've only ever seen the first one, but the past week I did a little review. Screaming with excitement, I actually watched Scream 2, 3, 4, and 5 for the first time last week in preparation for this film. Got a marathon all those movies over the course of about a week, which was a lot of fun. Um, so my ranking of the Scream movies before we get into six, I said this on the stream before. I would go Scream, Scream 5, Scream 2, Scream 4, Scream 3. How about you, Caden?
um, I go with the Scream 2, Scream 1, Scream 5, then 3, then 4. I hate 4. Like,
Really? You don't like
yeah,
4?
I hate
Wow.
4. I like
That's interesting for me.
with a passion. I hate 4.
Wow, that's
Like,
fascinating to me because for me at least, I do not like. Well, I don't hate any of the Scream movies. I think they're all good. I found 3 to be the least enjoyable. I think it's a bit too meta, and I think that it leans into too much weird stuff. Like, I talked about this in the stream before, but like the Jay and Silent Bob cameo, I'm like, why? And there's just like weird little
I
things.
with me, like you know how like you can have like um where it's like A, B type tier.
Mhm.
Like for me, like that's 2 through 3, like two,
Yeah,
one, 3, 5, 1, 2, 1, 5, 3. 2, 1 and 5 is A, and like 3 is B, and then F or like not F, D uh is 4.
mhm.
Um,
Well, real quick, so we don't want to spend too much time
yeah.
because we want to make sure we get to Scream 6. But what about Scream 4 turned you off so much?
Um, to me, I hate the reveal. I hate the whole aesthetic of the movie.
Like
Um,
the way it's shot and the way it
the
looks?
way it's shot and the way it's written in the aspect of this whole like Jill trying to like become like, to me that feels like too
Mhm.
much and it feels like it's trying to do too much. And like I feel like it also was like trying to be like, oh, we can be different. We can still use family members as a way to do this and like part of Sydney's family to show that she's not the only that she's the only sane person in her family when it looked like, but like it's weird. And
Mhm.
also the whole thing with like Charlie, like how he's just basically kind of like not even like really a ghost face. He's just like a lackey to the whole ghost face moniker. Like he's not
Right.
really a
Well,
ghost
to
face. He's
me,
just
I thought the reveal in Scream 4 was surprising, and I liked how it kind of played on things to where we kind of set up the idea of someone wanting to be basically Sydney. Because we had that kind of before as motivation for, say, someone like Cotton or Colton. His name Colton or Cotton?
cotton weary.
Yeah, Cotton.
What
Which I thought was interesting because you take that premise, but you make the person a killer who wants to basically frame Sydney or frame, in this case, Charlie as the killer so she can become the next Sydney. Which I thought that was interesting. Like somebody who's jealous of
I
all the
feel like if
attention
you were
Sydney
going
got.
to make Charlie more of like trying to stage him as more of the killer, then have him be the actual killer that's doing the kills
Mm,
and not you, because then it'll be like if you're doing the kills and you're gonna frame someone else for it, and that is your
right.
quote unquote partner. It's like, and then you do the last, the actual last few kills, then that will make more sense. And also I didn't like the whole thing where she comes back to life and she is like, like that whole thing. Like, no, Scream 4 is like to me like the worst Scream movie. Scream 3 I feel like is overhated because it introduced a lot of great elements. I know we don't want to spend much time on this, but I feel like Scream 3 introduced a great lot of
Yeah,
elements.
no, no, and like I said, for me at least, after watching all these movies for the first time as a first time viewer, I don't think
Yeah,
there's any of the movies are bad. I think they're all good to some extent. They're very good, strong movies in respect to their respective genre.
right.
Scream 5, I thought was very strong. Get some new creative voices with Radio Silence
Oh, I love
directing,
Scream 5.
and I really think that it is a very well made legacy sequel, or in this case, a requel. It does a very good job introducing a new core of characters. I think it handles the legacy characters very well. I'm still
Yeah,
mixed on the fact that they killed off Dewey.
actually, I feel like with Dewey, um, it was, it was one of those things where it was his time, in at least in like the franchise
No, I
to
get the
like
logic.
be
Someone eventually
yeah
had to die. Someone had to die.
right. And although like I'm like completely sad about that, um, I do one thing I will say though is that Scream 3 has two of my least favorite kills, Cotton Weary and Jennifer Jolie. I wish they did not kill those two characters off, but besides that, uh, but Scream 5 um, has the with before Scream 6, I feel like Scream 5 had the most creative kills,
Hmm.
um, and the most brutal kills, other than the that one girl in Scream 4 whose guts was legit on the bed. Um,
Yeah,
other
yeah.
than that, other than that one kill in Scream 4, Scream 5 tops it with the kills.
Hmm.
Um, and I think and Scream 6 tops it even more.
Scream 6 does
Um,
have some excellent kills. So let's
oh
start. So let's get into that. So we're going to start talking about Scream 6. But before we do, there is the elephant in the room when it comes to this movie, and that is the absence of Nev Campbell. So, okay, now I'll put you on the spot and ask the big question here. Did this movie need Nev Campbell, and did you
no,
miss her in this film?
no, I didn't because I felt her presence in this movie.
There's a
Even without
line in the movie about
There's a
Sydney being
line
like,
about
yeah.
her, and that's all I needed. I didn't need this constant reminder that Sydney's not in the movie. I just need that one line, or like one or two lines saying something about Sydney was fine.
Mm,
Um, like the line they said was perfectly fine. It even like calls back to the line, the first encounter with Sydney and with Dewey and Sydney in the Scream 5. So it's kind of like okay, it's reminding us again that Sydney has a family, and that
hmm
Sydney is married to Mark Kincaid, who we met in Scream 3.
Yeah, Patrick
So it's like,
Dempsey, which is kind of crazy.
yeah, so it's like, it's reminding us that yes, that like while
Mm.
this is happening, that Sydney doesn't need to deal with this anymore. She has a family to take care of.
Would you like to see Nev Campbell return for Scream 7? Or do you think it's
If
okay to let her
the
character
story
go?
calls for it, if the story calls for it, and if they want to bring her back, and honestly, it feels like it's more of like people were blaming Spyglass, but I felt it was more on Paramount, as we saw with Mean Girls. They were trying to get those the old cast back for this new one, and
Mm,
Paramount wasn't wanting to pay them. So people are blaming Spyglass for that whole Nev Campbell situation, rather than it was probably more on Paramount who didn't want to upfront that money. But at the
mm,
same time, I feel like if Radio Silence and Spyglass convince uh, like Paramount to like be like, hey, like let's bring it back, and then if the story calls for it, I'm sure Paramount will be like, okay, let's do it.
yeah.
But if if the story doesn't need it, then the story doesn't need like unless like if it's like an end thing, fine. But like if the story doesn't need it, we don't need Sydney in every single Scream movie if it
Mm,
doesn't have to do with Sydney. We can deal with the Carpenters and the
right.
Meeks and the Martins for right now.
Yeah.
You
What
know,
I would say is that to be fair, I did miss Nev Campbell a little bit, but I started getting used to not seeing her because to be fair, when it comes to Scream 5, she's not in the movie that much. I mean,
she's only in the movie like for like 15 minutes.
yeah, she's not in it for very much. She gets the
Not
phone
even
call
15
for
minutes. Actually, like more like 10.
It's very short. I mean, she gets the
Yeah,
phone call from Dewey, telling
yeah,
her to stay away from Woodsboro, and then she comes after Dewey dies, and you see her in the hospital for a little bit, interacting with Sam,
yeah. So it's like
played by
more like
Melissa
10 minutes.
Barrera, and in the final part of the movie where she's back at Stu's house.
Right.
So it's not that much screen time, and so they already were kind of setting things up for for the
Right.
passing of the torch. So for me, did I miss her? Yes, but I was still
Oh yeah.
engrossed in the story, and I thought it worked fine. Would I like
Yeah.
to see her come back? To be honest, yes, I would like to see her. I
Yeah.
think she should, even just as a cameo, just some kind of presence of Sydney would be
Even
nice.
if it's honestly, I feel like what would be a great hook for Scream 7, like, I mean, Scream 7 to go into Scream 8 to be like the quote unquote final, even though it might not even be the final. They might even, like, the producers said that they want to continue this for how as long as they can.
Hmm.
So whatever that means for them, if it means 9 is like the finale, then 9 is. But if like they want to hook it and do like a hook cliffhanger in Scream 7 or Scream 8, if Nev isn't in any of those, then to have like the killer of that movie or one of the killers of the movie survive and then call like Sydney, you know,
Yeah,
and then be like,
and
and
that's the
then
lead in for the next movie.
right, and then they'll
Yeah,
bring in everyone together. So it's like then it'd be like that type of thing. But other than that, you don't really need her unless again the story calls for it. Then the story calls for it. If it doesn't, then you don't need her.
yeah.
Um,
No, that's fair. That's fair. So, kind of jumping into the actual film itself, Scream 6. Before we get into spoilers per se, I'll leave the little banner up for now, but just in case something slips. But I'll go first and share my thoughts. I thought this was a very well done film. I think I was really, really enjoyable. I might slightly prefer over Scream 5, although I do quite enjoy both. It's hard to rank this film. I might need to do another rewatch of it, but it's very, very good. I think the opening's fantastic. It's a really good opening. It's very surprising. And again, the kills are really good. I thought the performances were very nice. It made me really care about the new core four characters, which I think this movie really need to do. It really need to sell the audience on, okay, if this is our core four, these are our four main characters moving forward. Make us care about them even more so than before. They thought they did a really good job with that. Um, I really liked the way they handled the legacy characters, mostly Gale. I thought Gale had a really fantastic sequence in this movie. I think Hayden Panettiere, Kirby, I think she could have been utilized a little bit better, but I think she's going to come back, so it's hard to really knock the film for that because I think this is more so set up for future appearances potentially. And regarding the killers, I don't know what to feel about the killers per se. I don't think that they're bad per se. It's very interesting, and their motivation is very interesting. It's just it's kind of slightly obvious. I mean, except for one little aspect of it, but we'll kind of get into that. But overall, really, really enjoyed this movie. Definitely a high tier Scream movie in my
how
opinion.
many knives do you give it?
How many knives? How many knives are we talking out of?
5.
I'd go four, maybe 4.5 knives out of five, maybe. It's really hard to say. Like I said, but
Yeah,
it's
it's
I don't think it's as good as the
it's a
original,
great
but nothing is. But you
yeah.
know,
For me, it's a great sequel to like what I love about it. It doesn't just like focus on the first movie. It focuses on every single movie it came before it, and specifically it does use 1 and 5, but it really utilizes 2, 3, and 4 really well. Um, as a person who doesn't like 4 as much, I like how they utilize the story of Kirby in this, and I honestly, as a person who liked Kirby in 4, I loved her now. I became more of a fan of her now. Um, and um, and with Gale, um, in Scream 2, she had that amazing sequence in the college audio center,
Oh
and
yeah,
then
the audio center. That was
and
really
then in
good.
this
Yeah.
one she has even like what's even makes this one even better is the call, where she's gets an actual call the first time from the Ghostface. And that's what honestly heightens this one because she's like on the phone and they're in her home and like so they're like in the same like circle with each other even without with talking to each other.
Right. Yeah.
And so it's like and I like how she utilizes that against the Ghostface. Um, so it's like okay, but and then the core four, love how they made us actually love Sam more in this movie,
Yeah,
and
that's
actually
something I
feel
wanted to
for
speak.
her.
Yes, yeah, I wanted to speak on that for
Um,
a little bit because I know
yeah,
when it came to Scream 5,
the Scream
I, I
Five,
I wasn't aware of this, but there was a little bit of some pushback
there was
about the fact that she has visions of Billy
yeah
Loomis.
there was pushback on that. There was pushback on a lot of things with Sam in the Scream Five. But I think this one since it was like getting more footing with her character and understanding and using that criticism in this movie as a way to shape this movie was great because then it's like okay, like how do we use like real life criticism of this character and this actress and put it into our movie. And
Yeah, no,
honestly,
that's a great way to think about that because the movie definitely explores the. What I find fascinating is what they're doing with Sam's story is compared to Sydney. Sydney becomes lauded, right? She becomes like this otherworldly figure, like, oh my God, you're Sydney Prescott. Like,
right,
but when it comes to Sam, it's like, well, we find out later in the movie why, but everyone doubts her. Everyone thinks, oh, she's related to Billy Loomis. Is she really going to
right,
turn to a killer? She's going to snap one day and kill people. Like, they
right.
don't view her the same way they viewed Sydney. It's a very different
No,
kind of
and
experience.
honestly, it's like like from it's the point of view of a the it also it's kind of like this overall story of like the sins of the father or the mother is not the sins of the child, you know. Um, so same thing with Sydney, where she in Scream 3, where she had to deal with and Scream 1 and 3, she dealt with the sins of her mother, you know, as if like it was upon her, like as if it was her fault that everything that happened to her mother, that happened to her mother was her fault, and now and that how she'll become like that. And now with this one, they're really utilizing that aspect and really make it a full on trilogy type of like theme. Um, and so that's like the very interesting thing with Sam. And then Tara, who's just trying to like reject the whole trauma of everything
Yeah,
and trying to
because
act like as
she's
if it
trying to just live a normal life, and she's just
right.
trying to return to some semblance of normalcy.
Right, and so she's just, like, dealing with it on her own without even really dealing with it as, like, Sam is, like, trying to say, "Hey, Tara, you need therapy, you need this," and then and Tara's like, "No, I don't want to even think about that anymore,"
Hmm.
and
Well, and it's a really interesting relationship between those two characters because
yeah,
Sam, who's been missing for a large part of Tara's life, comes back, and this traumatic
mhm,
event happens, and she doesn't want to let go. She wants to be like
right,
with Tara everywhere and like really dictate her life to protect her. And it becomes
right.
this motif of the movie where it's like she has to learn to let go and let Tara live her own life too.
Yeah, and what is interesting is that I think with, Tara, it's gonna lead her down the path that led uh, Sydney into with Scream 3, where she's now, kind of secluded, you know, to herself. Or it might lead to the opposite, where she's open, and then with Tara and with Sam, it might lead her to be secluded, where
Yeah,
she's like, I don't trust anyone anymore, and so it secludes herself, and
yeah, and
then
that's gonna
Tara's the
kind
one
of
that's out
be
and in the open.
right.
Um,
Yeah.
and so it'll be very interesting to see how that leads to. But with the twins, um, I love the twins. The twins to me are
Yeah, I mean,
my
do
favorite
yes, yes.
duo of this trilogy. Um,
Yeah, no,
and
I
I
mean,
love
they like Mindy made a good impression in Scream 5. I feel
oh
like
loved
Chad,
her in Scream 5.
yeah, I feel like
Chad
Chad
was
had
more of
room to
like
grow,
yeah room to grow,
but
and I
Chad in this movie like
um
really stepped up.
Mason
Really
Gooding is
stepped up.
legit like such a great actor in this movie. Um and the way he like deals like this like kind of balance of trying to be the bigger brother to Tara but also trying to be like the love and protector of for Tara is like that balance that he has to try to find, and then we where we know where it leads up to, but it's like this like in the beginning like where in that party scene he's kind of figuring out like does he want to be the big brother or does he want to be the lover and protector of her. And we
Right.
once they get back to the apartment he figures out his role as the lover and protector. But
Right, he realizes that it's not just
yeah,
I'm the big bro. It's like I actually love
no,
you. Yeah.
right. And so it's like okay, and with Mindy it's like it's what's funny is I was noticing that like with Mindy, um it's kind of hard for Mindy where she's like, she's the film nerd and she's just like her uncle who knows the movies of these types of movies on the back of their hands, where they're like the rule person, where they're like, these are the rules, these are what's happening. And like everyone questions, like everyone who's outside of the core four questions them because they know so much. They're like, you know so much. Like, are you the killer? Like type of thing. And where it's also kind of like where anyone who gets attached to them to Mindy romantically has to understand that in her mind, yes, you are her romantic interest and her like her love, but you are also a suspect in her mind, whenever there's this thing type of thing going on, as we saw with Anika,
Right.
where
Yeah. Yeah.
like she was like Anika kind of like was like take it in like all lovey dovey, but you can also kind of tell that like she understands that like she has to understand that like, and like what I liked about the new friend group is that they all understood what the core four went through the previous 6 months ago. So it's like, okay, we understand that. So we have to understand that if, that in this situation, we can't take any much of this to like heart right now. Other than Ethan, who basically fools on goes on like worrying about his like, he's like, I'm gonna die a virgin and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and that whole thing, and which is like in it in itself is pretty funny.
Mm,
But like, and the new group of people is
right. Yeah.
like Josh Segura as Danny.
Yeah, Josh Garrett doesn't have a lot to do in this movie
Does
per
have a lot
se,
to do,
but it's a
but the
good
way
introduction. Yeah.
he's a good addition, and I like the way that they handle him as the boy across the hall that she has a secret relationship with. You know, because it's like she doesn't want anyone to deal with what she's dealing with.
Mm,
Um, and so it's like okay, and but
yeah.
he's like I don't understand. I understand it, but at the same time I don't understand it.
He's just
You
kind of
know,
there.
he
He's
he's
learning
just
as he
like
goes.
okay, like I understand, like and he's kind of also kind of like he understands his role like right away. Like
Right.
he understands he's the lover and protector. He
Yeah.
like he's where Chad wants to, was trying to get to,
Mm,
um, and so, and you kind of see it along the way in the movie, with the ladder scene, with the subway, um, scene, and everything leading up to that,
right.
all this stuff. So
Yeah.
it's
Well,
like
let's kind of go in order a little bit. Let's talk about like let's
the
kind of go in
opening.
order as the movie. Yes, let's get into the opening.
Oh my god,
How
this
did you feel
opening.
about this opening? Because to me, I loved it
Oh,
because
oh,
I will say I know you don't like Scream 4, but I really like Scream 4's opening because it's just like it's movies within movies and just like so over the top. Um, this to me was like a really good opening because it is the definition of subverting expectations, right? So you have
oh.
Samara Weaving, who's the film studies professor at Blackmore University.
Hmm.
She's on a Tinder date basically at a bar. She gets the call from Tony
Waiting on
Revolori.
Reggie,
Yeah. Oh, with
and
young.
well, his name is Reggie. She's waiting on Reggie,
Mm.
and he like he's confused on where the bar is they're meeting up at.
Right, and then she goes outside to
You
go try and
but
find
the thing,
him.
the funny thing is you recognize the voice automatically.
Right.
Like us, the audience, know exactly what's happening. But the thing is that like visually, it's completely mis like like trying to confuse you, because physically you, uh, like, and visually you see Reggie like is this white guy, but
Mm.
audibly and the way you hear it is that you hear Tony Ravioli's voice.
Yeah, and you
So
know
you
it's not
automatically
not it's
click,
not who it is, yeah.
right, you automatically click on what's happening once you hear that voice and you see the face that is on the contact.
Yes,
And
absolutely. And again, what makes it great is so Tony Revolori's Jason character kills Samara Weaving in the opening movie. Very sad because I love Samara
right, it's
Weaving, but it was a good
right.
cameo. It's a good
Oh,
cameo.
yeah.
It's she falls in line with like the Drew Barrymores and like everything else, or like
Right.
the Jada Pinkett Smith. So it fits. But what makes it great is he goes back to the university and he bumps into Tara, right? So it's like, uh-oh, like did they already like did they subvert expectations and reveal the killer early? It's like, no, of course they
Right.
didn't, because that would never happen. So
What
when he
you're
gets
like,
home
"Oh."
and he gets the call, it's like, oh, he's a killer trying to kill the Carpenter sisters to finish Richie's movie with his
Right.
roommate. But then it turns
Right.
out, no, there's another killer who doesn't want them to kill Sam and Tara because they want to kill Sam and Tara their way.
Well,
So they takes him
like,
out of the way. It
the
makes it
way it
great.
leads up to it, it's pretty funny. You're like, "Oh," like, as he mentions, like, "Oh, don't be doing this kinky shit with me right now." Like, like, I'm not in the mood right now, like, for this. I like, even though, yes, like, this feeling of adrenaline after that, that sweet kill, I like, I can't do that right now. And then he's like continuing the modulated voice, and then like this playing this game of hot and cold, uh, is very like that. The use of that is great, and like the reveal of like the fridge, and it's like, oh snap, and then you're like, and then the kill happens. You're like, that's like the opening. This
Well,
opening scene
dude,
is top
like
three.
what? Because going into this, we heard about this movie being like very bloody and like very brutal, and
Oh
definitely one of like the most violent movies in the series. The opening scene has like his roommate like cut up and stuffed in the fridge. Like
yeah, like
it's
that was.
crazy
I was just like, what
because
the heck?
we haven't seen that level of violence, or like we've
The
seen
only
like
level of
rib,
violence is literally guts spilled,
yeah,
but
gut
other
spill,
than
but not
that,
like actual like dudes getting cut up and stuffed in a fridge,
right?
like body parts everywhere. Like that was definitely extreme. So again, really good opening scene.
Yeah.
Um, so
Then
let's
it
kind of so I wanted to kind of move into characters for a bit. For you at least, who's the MVP of this movie?
the MVP,
Yeah, like the
um,
character that stood out the most to you in this movie.
Chad.
Really, Chad. Okay,
Yeah,
just because you
Chad.
think it was a big improvement for what he did in the
Bigger
other movie.
improvement, and yeah, he really took on a bigger role this time. Um, as um, where it's like again he struggles in the first the party scene, of figuring out who is he gonna be for Tara, like who is he gonna be, and you know and and leading up to that scene of like actual finding out of who he is, um then he's like, okay, like this is who I'm gonna be for her, and leading up to everything throughout the movie, from uh like it's just him and Tara being the first ones out of the apartment trying to get back in, and realizing that like that no, you just go back downstairs, because
Yeah, it's
again
very well
the
handled. It's very well
yeah,
handled.
and
For,
with everything that comes with that, and he when after the aftermath of the latter scene, when the day breaks and everyone like the ambulance, and cops and everything come in, and Ethan comes back, who Ethan is his roommate. Um,
Oh yeah, and Chad is like, nope,
yeah,
I'm not having this because like
yeah, he's like,
not
no,
only
like
did my
you,
sister almost die, but like her girlfriend just died brutally. By the
yeah,
way,
and
real
you,
quick,
and
real
you're
quick.
coming up here like all like what
Y-
happened in like and
Yeah,
like
he's like
where
he's
were
not
you?
having it.
Like
Right.
like even though we're dorm mates, where were you? Like and
Yes.
act like because at this point he like he's gone through already and he understands exactly what this everything is going down for.
Yeah,
And he's
he's
like
not
who
like
like
he's not clueless anymore. It's like,
no, he's
oh,
not
it's just
clueless anymore. He's not like he knows exactly what's going down and he wants to know everything. And so he's like, "Where were you?" And he's just like, "Oh, like I was at study hall and at econ and all that stuff." And so he gets past, and even Mindy questions him and all that. Um, and then just like how through the theater, the shrine, like the protecting of like of everyone, but
mm,
specifically Tara, and is
yeah,
just
no, for sure.
like his eyes aren't protecting Tara because he understands that if Sam goes away and dies, then
Who's
like
left?
who's left for Tara? Then if he understands that if he dies, then she at least has Sam. So it's like okay,
Mm,
so I need to I need to die, not Sam. Um, and so that's like what's so great about that scene as well. Um, even like which like kind of like was like a WTF moment when both like two Ghostface came out of nowhere,
Oh
and it was
yeah,
just
that
like
was great. That was a great the way that was shot and the reveal of
oh
that was
my god,
great.
that shot and that
And they
scene,
both like clean up their knives at the exact
right?
same time and
Like oh,
synchronized.
I was just blown away by that
That
shot.
was
But like,
very well
but
directed.
yeah,
Yeah.
Chad's storyline in this movie is a bigger improvement. Um, and honestly, like if you follow him through Scream 5 and 6, he's evolved to this better character, better human being.
Yeah,
Um,
no, for sure. For me at least, I would say I think this movie's really elevated by the two sisters. Like I really think that Jenna Ortega in this really steps up because she was great in Scream 5, don't get me wrong, but she has a lot more to do in this movie, a lot more is
oh yeah,
asked of her because she's used a lot more. In Scream 5, like she's there, but she's
right.
still
She's
kind
more
of
of a presence in Scream
she's a
5.
presence and like she kind of has some important things to do, but she's not this, like an anchor of that movie per se. This
Right.
movie's asking for her to do a lot more because she has a whole character arc. She has to like bounce off of Melissa Barrera, Sam. She really has to develop this emotional arc. She has to develop this whole thing with like Chad and his character arc. So I really think that Jenna Ortega really stepped up in this movie, and it's a very big role for her. And I think Melissa Barrera, I think, is also stand out as Sam because I feel like again coming off of Scream 5, you're the face of this franchise now, right? You're
Right.
basically the new Sydney. There's a that's a big task, and I think that in this movie, the way her character developed, I thought was very well done because again, coming off of Scream 5 and some of the backlash to her character because she's the daughter of Billy Loomis, she's having visions, and visions aren't something that the Scream fans are really getting behind. But I thought like the way they set up her character to where they really got you to emotionally invest in her and kind of really understand what she's going through. I thought that was very well done. And I think there's a
Yeah.
lot of interesting ways they could go about her character moving forward. That's like her character opened up a lot more possibilities for like some crazy twists and turns potentially. So I really, really
Hmm.
enjoyed that.
Yeah. I enjoyed uh Tara's story in this movie. Um, and like the way they handle her because like in Scream 5 she is the opening scene where she's injured and then hospitalized. And she's in the hospital for majority of the movie until the third act where she's basically the damsel in distress of that movie. Um, while in this movie there's not really a damsel in distress in this movie. This time, other than really, I mean you would say Sam, but but she doesn't really need saving because she can handle her own. Um, but other than that, like in Scream 5 to this, Tara's story has evolved I mean, everyone's story has evolved, but the most I feel like the core four story has
Yeah.
evolved.
And again, you get to
Um,
see the core four come together. It's like, okay, like we've
yeah,
established who are our leads for this franchise moving forward. And
right.
again, I think that's an important thing this
Oh,
movie
it's
had
a
to
very
do.
important and
And and
distinction.
again, it makes you care. Because it's not to
Yeah,
say that we didn't care in Scream 5, but Scream 5 was that passing of the torch movie. It's like, okay,
right,
I like these characters.
right.
Scream
And
6
the
is like,
Scream
we don't
6, you
have the
get to
legacy
really
characters to
know these
rely on any.
characters,
Right. Scream 6 is like
and
really develop these characters and like make us
it's
care even more. Like, why should
yeah,
these characters be the new faces of this
right.
franchise?
And I feel like like the underdog of this movie, the person who's like probably the most underappreciated of this movie is Devin Nakado's Anika. Her like
Yeah, I was gonna mention Anika is like
like
it's tragic because like
it's a very tragic
she
story.
has chemistry with
Oh, Jasmine,
Jasmine Savoy Brown, and it's like you buy
Jasmine
into their
and Devin
relationship.
are great on screen together.
Yes,
Um,
for sure. Like they have
and
chemistry, and what I was gonna say too is like she like because I was gonna talk about the kills in just a moment, but like I feel like Anika's death is like the most brutal in the movie.
oh, it is
It's scary because like she's trying
because
to climb over the ladder. She's already having her
like
guts
well, she
spilled
already has
over.
her guts almost spilled.
Yeah,
Like
because Ghostface like stabs her, then drags the knife up. It's like damn.
yeah, you're like oh my god, she's gonna die there, and then like uh, he gets hit, and then like and gets distracted, and then runs, um, and so it's like and then in the bedroom where she's just like, "Go, Mindy, go! Like, don't worry
Yeah,
about me. Like, I'll be
she
right at."
basically gives
Be,
up and just like just save
yeah,
yourself at this
she
point.
because at that point she has no energy. She's just like,
Well,
just
she's
go.
bleeding
Like,
out. Like she's like
she's
done for the
literally like,
count.
out of everyone in that scene, she was dead on the spot. Uh, and what is so crazy about that is that like we talk about Jason uh and Laura in the beginning, um and his partner, but then you have Quinn, who you know we don't really see her get stabbed as much, but you can definitely hear it as throughout the movie. They Before that scene they kind of tell you that like Quinn is a very loud person in
Mm.
the bedroom. um And so then you're like, "Oh, it's kind of like, off to the side where you're just like, oh, it's like whatever." But then, of course, you have Danny, who's the lover and protector across the street, who's
Oh
trying
yeah,
to
when
get a
he see
hold.
yes, dude, when he sees Ghostface about to
Yeah.
kill Quinn and like his the panic, like
Oh
he's
my
doing
God, the panic mode
everything.
in his
Yes,
eyes.
yes, and
And
he's
he's
doing
just like
everything he can to like make noise
like
or like try and
physically,
call.
like he's showing Ghostface like this strong person, but in his eyes that you can see is this panic mode. It's like this like panic of like where he's just like trying to like scare Quinn to like try to tell Quinn to like like hurry up, like see what you're like what's happening. And um and so and he's trying to text everyone, who like he calls uh Sam, and Sam is like, as because funny thing is that they're talking about him at that dinner scene. They're like, oh, like Tar brings someone, I forget who brings him up, but that's the topic of conversation of like Danny, and it's like, and then Mindy's like, oh, remember, don't trust love interests, and then she's like, yeah, I remember last time, and and what and uh declines, um and then kind of like and then so it's like trying to he sends a photo of Ghostface to all four of them,
Yeah, just being
and
like, dude, like this is
like
serious. Like
this is
look
what's
what's going
happening.
on.
And then and that scene is so intense. You're just like it's the
Yeah,
first
it's a very
encounter.
well executed scene because like the
Yeah.
ghost face in this movie, like it makes
Oh.
sense because of the reveal of who it is, but this is
Oh yeah.
clearly a trained person, right? It's
Yeah.
like the physicality of it is very well done, and like this Ghostface,
Yeah.
like it, like we've seen before, Ghostface always feels like they can do a lot,
Right.
but
But
this time
this
it feels
one,
like
oh my
this is
god.
somebody who like could really like the strength, especially.
And then
So,
like the thing is when they when Ghostface attacks Quinn and throws Quinn out of the bedroom and
mhm.
into the room when when they're watching TV, and then when the four is like kind of like like panicking and trying to get everyone out of the room, out of the apartment, and then opens the door, comes out Quinn, and they think Quinn's alive, and then just falls on Anika and Mindy, and then um and that whole like panic mode, and it's just like, and then then when you get everyone into Quinn's bedroom, you see all the blood and everything in there, and then
oh, the
and
dude in the
Mindy.
bathtub too.
Oh, and then when Mindy, or like, was it Mindy or Nika trying to close the door?
It was Mindy,
The
I
bath.
think. It was
Yeah,
Mindy.
Mindy was trying to go close the bathroom door, and before she can get there, like Ghostface is right there, and and then you kind of like the way that they move to that room, you see Quinn's like hookup that's dead in the bathtub, and that scene looks brutal already. And then like you go back to that room where it's like Quinn's gut, like blood is just everywhere, everyone's blood is everywhere, and like them trying to push the cabinet in front of the door, and then or that door's already locked. And one thing in my mind when Sam was trying to close the door with her back, I was like, Sam, don't do that. Sam, don't do that. He has a knife. Like, are you like and what was and the crazy thing is, before, what even adds to more of the panic is
Mhm.
like before, when Sam goes into the kitchen to look for a knife, like all the knives are gone. So
Oh,
she's like
yeah, and that was
and
great
her
too because it's like they mentioned earlier, it's like someone took all the knives, so we couldn't defend
right,
ourselves, and that's
right,
this is something now it's like this level of distrust, like,
right,
okay, who
and it's
is
just
it?
like, oh my god, like what? Someone took all the knives,
Because
like,
even when they try and be prepared, someone screws them
yeah.
over.
Right. And so then, and then and Danny and Sam are like trying to figure out how to get over, and then Danny just brings out this ladder, and and shoves it, and tries to, get it, and you're
Mm.
thinking, okay, the ladder's there, everyone's gonna go over smoothly, like everyone, like they'll have some tricky and stuff, but everyone go,
Well,
and then they added to
the
the
fall is scary because, like,
oh,
the it's a wobbly ladder, it's like even though
it's a
it's just like
wobbly
it's
ladder
just
because you don't have
y
anyone really holding down. You don't have anyone that you can trust
right,
to
and
hold
even though
down
it's
the
just
ladder on one
yeah,
side.
it's only a space between apartments, but they make it feel like
Right.
it's a skyscraper,
Like,
you know?
yeah. And then so you get Sam across,
And then
and
Mindy
then
gets across.
Mindy's like, kind of like wobbles in the between, and like kind of, and then you grab the hand of Sam, goes across, and now it's Anika, and you're like, oh god, Anika, her like she's like basically from the belly button to her like sternum is like open right now, and she's trying to hold it closed, and while Ghostface is like basically almost in the room.
Trying to bash his way in because
Yeah,
that desk is,
because of
like,
the
blocking it,
dresser
yeah.
is in the way, and then and then as soon as starts climbing on, like once she gets like kind of like the halfway point, Ghostface barges in, and then
And just start
slams his
shaking.
knife.
Y
He
yeah,
slams his knife into the window seal,
'cause, like, I
and
don't need the
starts
yeah, because it's
shaking.
like he doesn't need the knife at that point, so I'm just
No,
gonna
he doesn't
shake
need
you
the knife at this
off.
point. He just starts shaking the ladder, and you're like, "Damn it!" And then as soon as Mindy and Anika touch his hands, bop, the ladder goes sideways, and then
She just
down goes
falls.
Anika,
And it's
and
not even that
then
she falls, man, it's the fact that when she falls, her head hits the dumpster and
the
caves it in.
dumpster, and her half, her eye is bold, like basically like how
It's the
Amber
most
looked like in the first
yes,
in Scream
yes.
5, like that, and it
It's
was
the mo
just like,
I would say Anika's death is the most brutal in the movie,
yes.
which is ironic because she's the
Other
character that
than one of the the one of the at the end,
yes, which we'll
yes,
get into, yeah, yeah,
yeah,
but, like, in terms of,
um,
like, kills by Ghostface, that's the most
yeah,
brutal kill by
and
Ghostface.
then what's even so and then you get into the the Ethan and Chad scene, um, which is you're like, oh snap, they're all distressed, and then this one of their friends come, like they're the one that wasn't there at all, who, like, of course is like, in everyone's mind is a suspect, um, but kind of has like a sort of an alibi, but still a skeptical alibi because like he said there's 100 people there, so you can ask anyone. But like be like okay, yeah, yeah, yeah. Like they want like that type of thing where you give a big number where that type of thing. It's like okay, push it off. Um, and then you have Gail who as before the bodega scene. Um, like that whole thing was um well, not the bodega, no, never mind, it's before the bodega. This is before the bodega or after. Is the letter before or after the bodega?
It's after the bodega.
Right. Okay, so so the bodega scene, um and then you have Gail show up at the precinct as a reporter, and that you kind of see that like like no one wants to deal with Gale. Like Gale, who has written another book.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you about that. How did you feel about that? Because they kind of made a big deal in
Well,
Scream 5 about like her like writing the she says, I'm gonna write about Dewey. And then it seems
right.
like she
And
didn't actually
but the
do
thing
that.
is that like you can say like I think what they like kind of like in this movie they kind of revealed that like she said that she was gonna write about Dewey, and what she did is write about Dewey, but like
She
but
added a bunch of other stuff to it.
added a bunch of this other stuff, and which added to everything that's going on with this
And
movie,
it kind of
which
makes Sam look bad in a
yeah,
way.
and so it's like okay, like because you say I'm a like crazy
She said
and
like mentally unstable and
mentally
angry and
unstable,
stuff.
and
Yeah.
it was just like and it's funny how like it's it's similar to the fact in Scream 2 when Dewey and Gale reunite at the campus, and she and uh Gale calls Dewey like what it like a rookie
Yeah,
and all this stuff.
like a yeah, he calls him rookie, like a clueless rookie cop or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah, and so it hurts him and all that stuff, but it kind of like goes back to that whole thing where it's like instead of and it's like kind of flips it where it's like, now it's like causes all this thing.
Mm.
But we find out that it really wasn't Gail's book that really put,
Right, and that's a good
and
segue because let's talk about the big reveal of the movie, of course, who the
yeah,
killers are. So, last chance, if you don't want to know what the killers are, spoilers. It is
Ethan
Quinn,
Landry,
Ethan Landry,
Quinn
Quinn,
Bailey
their roommate, and the detective,
by
Detective Bailey.
well, Dermot Mulroney, Leonard, and Jake Champion, which we all know recently starred in Avatar: Way of Water.
Yes.
Um,
So they all three are the killers because the big reveal is they are the family and relatives of Richie from Scream 5
yeah.
who built
So
who built a shrine
right.
of Ghostface memorabilia and made his own home movies, and they're pissed off that Sam basically killed Richie.
Yeah, so basically like Dermot plays Richie's dad, who basically bought Richie all this memorabilia and his first camera recorder and everything, and to like create these movies with all this stuff. And Ethan and Quinn are his little siblings who of course they're like, oh, Ethan and Quinn are our names really, da da da, whatever. um but like I said before we started recording, the one character that and I said throughout this thing, the one character that we were all sus about was Ethan. And then for me, the scene that kind of took him off of the list was the subway scene with him and
Right,
Mindy,
yeah. And by the way,
and that
real quick too, that subway scene is fantastic, dude.
oh
Like the
oh yeah,
build up and like is Ghostface on the subway car and it's like is he gonna go after the like Tara,
after like
Sam,
well
Danny,
the
and
one thing
Chad,
is like
or is it gonna be Mindy?
going to the subway when you have all of them trying to get into the subway,
And they
and
get split up.
they split up because Danny is trying to pull Mindy in, but can't, and as because there's people pushing them apart, and then she's like stranded and she thinks she's all alone, and then Ethan pops up out of nowhere and she's like, oh my god, like get away from me, Ghostface, like, and like because she like in her mind, like all of us, um, think Ethan is Ghostface, rightfully so, as we find out that he is, but like in this moment, we're all like thinking it, and then so then the train comes, they all get in the train. Mindy is like kind of like like trying to find a way where to stand and whatever. She just stands like on the back of the train while Ethan's like up near like the one of the doors. And so, they think they're safe, like okay. And as going along, you go kind of like back and forth between the two cars, and where you go with Sam and Tara and Danny and Chad, where they're like, oh, well, where's Mindy, and and then but like kind of like the thing where it's like, guys like look up, and there's like bunch of ghost face mask people, and as before, like before the latter scene, we saw on the TV that Ghostface mask sales are skyrocketing to
because
the
it's Halloween.
because it's Halloween, and so um and like you're like, oh snap, that plays into this whole scene where there's like 10 Ghostface masks, and they don't know if one of these 10 or two of these 10 or three of these 10 or all 10 are the killer, you know, and to find out that none of them are, and it's actually on Mindy and Ethan's car, where the killer is, and because you see this hooded figure who clearly is in a ghost face attire, who's just sitting down looking down while everyone's getting off the train, and then like the because on their train the lights flickering and on and off, and so um and like she, Mindy's watching this, like paying attention to this person, and as the shuffle happens, and as people get off, the train, so and then like there's this like relief feeling of relief that, oh, the person's off the train, like this person who's looking down, and then you continue, and then lights flicker, and then you kind of see them again, and then but it's like you don't know if it's the same person, but then like lights flicker off, and then stab, and it's
Yeah,
like
and
this
it's
intensity.
brutal. What I love too is like like I loved how it like in a way kind of like also like showed how like how oblivious sometimes people can
Oh
be.
yeah,
Where it's just like it makes sense in New York City where like so many things are happening all at once. You don't pay attention to like
yeah,
little things around you.
right. And
But
some
how
people
did
are
you?
just,
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
and like it's even what that whole scene is like, and then Ethan helps her, out of the train. So you think it's like, oh, Ethan's done.
Yeah, you
Like
think it's a
Ethan,
build up because they thought he was the killer the whole time. Yeah,
right? And then
right.
that scene happens, and as that
It throws
happens,
you
you're
off
like,
the scent.
okay,
It throws you off the scent.
kind of
So
throws you off the scent. And if you really pay attention and are a Scream fan and a fanatic, you probably should not have got that off your scent, um,
right, right.
because
So how did you feel about the killers overall? Did you think that they were too predictable? Do you think their
no,
motivation was good?
I
Like, did
think
you like it?
Ethan, I feel like their motivation, the motive was pretty interesting. Again, it didn't, to me, it was like, it felt like one of those things where you kind of like take the motivation of the previous trilogy and like kind of twist it in your own way, because like in Scream 2, it's similar setting, it's college, and similar kind of like uh reveal of thing where it's like, um it's the parent or family of the previous killer, trying to, be like, oh, but for this time it's different for them. Like for Mrs. Loomis, aka Debbie Salt, it was like, how could Sydney kill my son? And let me just use Mickey as a ruse of like, yeah, like you can have your own motive, I have mine, but we can work together, and that whole thing. With them, the Kirsches, it's like, you killed our brother, my son, and you and you're gonna pay for that. Because, and also what's even greater about this whole thing is that you're also the daughter of the infamous Billy Loomis, who is a ghost face, so we can just frame you for all of this. So it's even greater. We have a plus. It's not only that you killed our relative, but we also get to frame you for everything. So because you're Billy Loomis' daughter, and because of the shrine, and we can just like kill you and put you in this get up of a Ghostface attire, and it's really like it kind of elevates the Scream 2's motive with a different twist of events. Um, and so that whole scene where it's like kind of reveals Dermot's character kind of tries to frame Kirby before he
Yeah,
gets
they're
to
gonna
the
get
the whole
right to
thing, and you're
try
like
and throw, make
you
it
kind
seem
of
like
like
Kirby's the
you
killer.
you
Yeah,
kind of trust him in that scene when he calls Sam and says that. You kind of trust him. At the same time, you question it. You're like in this middle line of where you're like questioning, trusting, because Kirby did just like lock and
lock them all in there.
lock
Yeah,
themselves of them in there, and also kind of like disappeared. So you're like, okay, like you kind of take in consideration of like, oh, she's gone crazy and they fired her. Okay, like that's why there's not much more FBI attention on this, rather than thinking, oh, it's just trying to take the put a frame on Kirby in that scene, um, and then that whole when Kirby comes out and is like all beat up and everything, and is like, um, you're like, oh snap, like, and then like like Dermot's like where's Kirby, where like like and everything, and it's like, are you guys fine? And then Kirby comes out, it's like, don't believe a thing he says, um and everything, like you won't believe who's actually like, and then he shoots her and everything, and you're like, oh my god, like, and you think, okay, and then the two Ghostface that just like basically brutally stabbed Chad come out behind him, and you think he's
yeah,
about to
yeah, yeah,
get
yeah.
it.
I was gonna mention that too. Like that scene, because I don't
Oh,
know how your theater reacted, but like, okay, so when Chad and Tara finally kissed, like there's like some girls giggling in the back and like clapping, like they were really into that and really happy to see that. And then the
all of
moment
us
the
were like,
kiss
oh, like
happens,
finally, like
yeah, and
it
the moment
happened.
that happens, like a sweet moment, boom, stab in the back, then the two ghost faces start stabbing him
And
repeatedly.
then
It's like, God
arms, and
damn.
start like just like stabbing him in the arms, and it's just like, what the heck is going on? And like he just like falls to like this like kind of like Dewey style death, and you're like, oh, he's a goner. But at the same time, as always, you need, like with these type of things, you like with every single character, it's not just arms and like everything. You need to go full on out with, clearly, with either a gunshot in the head or full on guts spilled, or like you need to go out with these kills, or there's a possibility of them still being alive. Unless of course, if the cops and the mortuary comes with a Ziploc bag, not Ziploc bag, body bag, and
Yeah.
then you find out that, okay, they're
Yeah,
actually
and
dead.
like, and just to kind of start winding this down, but I really liked the final confrontation in this movie where it takes place in this theater where it's like all the memorabilia, and I love Sam dressing up as Ghostface herself and calling the detective Bailey using the voice
Oh,
modulator
oh my
and
god.
killing him as like
Oh, but the
as a
thing is,
killer.
the shot of like again, like um the trailers and the like photo stills that they released after watching
Mhm.
this movie, it puts a whole new perspective on certain things. You're just like, oh snap, like that whole thing where you see Ghostface behind the screen and like kind of comes out. That's not any of the three. It's Sam coming towards uh Detective Bailey, and um it's like, and also the whole thing with Detective Bailey like looking around all the Ghostface statues and like and sees that Billy's whole costume's gone, is like this whole like intensity of like, oh snap, like Sam is finally doing what they wanted, but not
Mhm.
in the way that they intended, you
Right.
know.
And again,
Um
the way that final confrontation worked too, where like Sam has to let go of Tara and she gives Tara the knife and he just stabs Ethan through the mouth and just twists it and says,
oh,
Die a virgin.
and that whole element just like,
And
oh,
then Sam just shooting Quinn, just like,
in the
yeah,
head.
you
It's
lost
just
another
like, yeah,
brother. It's like
like,
you're down another brother. Bang.
right.
You know.
Um,
So great final act for sure. But
Definitely. And I just love the one bonus thing I love is Mindy and Kirby talking about not just their fanatics of horror, but their like kind of like uh theories or facts or whatever you want to call it about like the previous like killers,
oh yeah, yeah,
especially
yeah.
Stu, like when they talk about the TV, like and like how I like how Mindy like says if you really believe that theory, that he's dead. Um, so it's like, kind of like puts
Oh
like
yeah, I was gonna mention that too. Like I felt like that was a nice little Easter egg. People have been asking for Matthew
right,
Lillard to come back, and maybe he still could. He
yeah,
still could. You
and like
never
I like
know.
how like they're like, and if you can really compare Ethan and Stu, it's like who had the most stab wounds and less physical capability to really survive, and who didn't. It's like Stu could have survived, Ethan couldn't because he got full on like his mouth basically. The only thing that's carrying his part of his head to his mouth is his skin, really.
Yeah,
Other than that,
it
he's
was just like
really,
one last burst of adrenaline. He was
yeah,
dead.
that one last birth, and then so it's just like okay.
Yeah.
Um,
But again,
so
like I thought the finale of the movie very rock solid again. But just to kind of wrap this up, and before we give our final scores, I wanted to ask, where does Scream go from here? So I have my theory. Um, I think this movie really sets up again a really interesting character thing for Sam. Like, does she embrace her father's heritage? Could she snap and become a killer? I mean, listen, I'm not saying I feel like it's like they're teasing like eventually she might become a Ghostface herself towards the end of this run, maybe, which would be fascinating. I feel like that's a possibility. How do you feel? And also, too, do you think they'll stay in New York City? Or do you think they might go somewhere else?
I think they'll go some. Well, actually, um, no, you know what? I think they might go somewhere else. I think with them, I honestly maybe they might even go to Atlanta with Kirby. Um, and that might be the new setting of Scream 7, where they will go off with Kirby, who can actually protect them with the FBI, and kind of, go back to, Atlanta, and that will be where they will be.
Hmm.
But I don't know, like, again, if they're, and also I think the big question is they bring it up in this movie. Kirby asks Sam, like, where is their mother in all of this?
Right, and that could
And
be an interesting direction to take the next movie. Like you
right,
see
and
who their mother is.
because we don't know who the mother or the mother of Sam and Tara, but we don't know the father of Tara. So that would be a good like introduction in Scream 7 of either one, you know. You and
Yeah.
just
How
like,
do you feel about like the what seems to be like the main plot device and like the main question moving forward as to Sam and whether or not she could
well, I
become a
think what
Ghostface
really
herself?
I like identifies Sam's story is the journal and that whole flashback of stuff, where she revealed to, like where she was revealed to be Billy's, daughter, and then she, frightened uh her stepfather, slash um, her, that whole person away, and then and that whole thing I like per- is what identifies her story of trying to recover from that whole thing still, because honestly I don't think like hasn't recovered from that really, um especially with Scream 6 bringing that back up, that whole thing, um where she like, kind of like recovers from it in this movie, but at the same time you kind of have this feeling of like you don't know who else will try to use that against her. um and the last person you would probably think use it against her, it will be Tara's father. if he ever pops up, um, and
Yeah.
so that's
Again, what I would like for Scream 7 is I'd be fine with the new location, but I'd be okay if we stayed in New York City for one more movie, get to kind of
right.
explore more of that location for a little bit. Up to them. I'm up for anything. If they want to go start moving to other locations each movie, that's cool with me too. Maybe the
Right.
next one they'll go to Atlanta because I mean there's a film industry in
Yeah.
Atlanta. You could do some
Yeah.
parallels with Scream 3 if you want to.
Yeah.
I
I mean,
do
you
think
can
it's uh,
honestly, you can have it where Kirby helps Mindy put her up in like into an internship at a studio, and then have
yeah,
Chad and
no, that's a great suggestion. They could for sure do
yeah,
that. And
yeah,
again, I think seeing the Carpenter parents could be good as well. And I
yeah,
think also, ideally, I would like to see Nev Campbell come back in some capacity. That would be nice for
yeah.
Scream
Maybe she
7.
does come back in like the third act, like in the like near the end of the movie,
Mhm.
like to the point where it's like it sets up eight,
Yeah.
but it's not
Uh,
like she's
uh,
like in the third act, but she's in the third
yes.
act.
And I do think part of me is wondering if they're going to set up Sam's character to where maybe she does eventually snap and maybe the final Scream movie is like she's the Ghostface.
Yeah,
Not maybe involuntarily because she can't
right.
control her mind or something. Although
Yeah,
I don't know if that'd be too much of a stretch for this franchise.
yeah.
It is
I
trying to
think
be grounded. I don't
there's
know.
a there's
It's just like there's just
like
so much
with
they're setting up. I just don't know what they're
yeah.
doing.
That's what I love about it. You don't know what they're doing. Um, and is that like each time they do something, you're like, oh, surprised by it. Uh, because like right now, like you were all thinking that they might use some of Scream 3 to inspire Scream 7, but for all we know, is that they might be abandoning the whole Scream franchise as a template and going off to a new realm with Scream 7. So who knows? We'll find out hopefully,
I think they're gonna start filming Scream 7 very soon. Like I could see them
yeah,
in this movie, maybe not next year, but I could see it coming out like 2025. So
yeah.
because I just think that everyone's schedules might be getting a little busy to where they couldn't shoot it for next year for a next year
Well,
release. But
I think yeah, I mean honestly, I think with filming Scream 6 so soon after Scream 5,
it'd be good to take a bit of a longer break. Like I
well,
think they're
I honestly think they might have talked to the cast and be like, okay, if Scream 6 is a success as we are predicting it to be, make sure you have a like the fall part of the year of that release year to be free, to be like, okay, we might shoot that time, but we'll let you know, because you don't really get a job this early of a
right.
schedule before the fall. So
Yeah, I mean, I'd be fine if they wanted to release Scream 7 next year, but I would also be fine if they decided to take next year off and then do Scream
yeah,
7 and 8 back to back instead or
yeah,
something.
be like, okay, here's Scream 5 and 6 back to back. Here's a year hiatus. Here's Scream 7 and 8 back to back.
Yeah, but we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
So, to wrap this up, Caden, give me your score and final thoughts for this film.
Um, my score for this movie um would be, what? Um, I would also give it like a 4 out of 5. Um, it's a great like I said, great sequel to Scream 5, and basically the great sequel to the whole uh entirety of this franchise. With the way that they dealt with the shrine and stuff. Um, I'm really happy with the way they handle uh some of the characters that we weren't able to really enjoy in Scream 5, like Tara and Chad. Um, and I was able, glad that we were able to build with the core four and actually know the core four and not be like, oh, one of the twins dies or one of, because honestly, if one of the twin dies or one of the Carpenter sister dies, it would have been like everyone would have been questioning and be like, and then it wouldn't be like as great as it was.
Yeah, he would have lost something. I feel like
Yeah,
he
he
would have
would have
lost like some
lost
real
something
potential.
with this movie. Like the reveal of Chad Bean still being alive was honestly a very uplifting moment for me. I was like, thank God he's
Although
not
it was
dead.
kind of silly because I'm just like the way he
Yeah.
got stabbed, it
Well,
really felt like a death stab. Like the way he
well,
multiple
it
times and the way and the
well,
locations he
Dewey
got.
had the same
Well,
similar
that's what I
thing,
was gonna mention. Like to me, it's like they
and
kind of they're giving
Chad a
Chad like
Dewey
the
type
Dewey
of,
plot armor, the Dewey plot
yeah,
armor. Yeah.
um, which to me is fine, whatever. But like,
Hey,
um,
listen, if they want to make Chad the new fan favorite to replace Dewey, I'm okay with that. If that's why they're kind of intending it, that's okay.
yeah, I'm also loving the kills each time they upgrade them in every movie. I remember when the directors were like doing the first like press tour run of Scream 5, and they were doing like this Discord Q&A, and they were talking about how like they use 7 different types of blood, and they probably use like 10 gallons of each type of blood. And then this time I wonder which types of blood they used this time and how many gallons of blood they used, you know, um, because not only like rehearsal and how many shots it takes, but like this one, I'm just like, how much blood did you use and what types of blood? Because that
Right.
the kills were like really insane.
They
Um,
were, and again, Mindy kind of mentions it's just like you're a franchise now. It's every new installment, you got to step it up.
right.
So I guess
Yeah, like it's a franchise now, so you gotta step it up every time.
yeah. So I guess we'll see
So
what
it's like,
happens next with Scream 7. But
yeah.
yeah, for
And
me,
what I did
oh,
like the
sorry, go ahead.
rules that she set up. The rules that she set
Yes,
up in this
yes,
movie, saying that like, subverting expectations might be great, but also doing something very simple is also better. So like kind of like combining both of those two things for this movie was great. So it was like, like the rules were like I like that whole aspect of each movie. Is that they set the rules in place. I don't remember if Scream 4 set rules up, but I know that every other movie has.
I had to go
Um,
back and no, they mentioned some rules in Scream 4, I think.
okay.
But yeah, no. Again, for me, definitely like a 4.5 out of 5. Really enjoyed this movie. Um, it was great. I had a really good time with it. And again, I continue to be blown away by just like the longevity of this franchise, just the way it's been progressing. This is a very, very good follow up to Scream from 2022, and I can't wait to see what's next for the franchise. So yeah,
Yeah,
thank you, Caden, so much for joining me.
of
And
course.
if you've made it this far into the video, please make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel for more awesome reviews like this and content coming your way. Again, this has been the Scream 6 spoiler review. Let us know what you thought of the film down in the comment section below, and we'll see you guys next time. Peace out.